But what is the best status effect in Raid Shadow Legends? Dead! Dead is the best status effect, and this does that. Quite an exciting time right now in Raid Shadow Legends, where they're giving all new accounts in the first 24 hours to enter a promo code to get one of the 3 following legendary champions. Get Alice for Alice the Wanderer, Monkey King for Sun Wukong, and Supreme 6 for Galek. And this is kind of a big deal because all 3 of these are very good. And if I'm being frank about this, all of these are good choices. Now, I do have some strong opinions which one I prefer, but that's largely based off of the type of gameplay that I enjoy. And it's also going to be based on what character is going to be good at what stage of development in the game, whether it's early game, mid game, late game. So we're going to talk about that. Now, if you have not done so already, there is a link in the description, or you can scan the QR code right here on the screen in the top left-hand corner, and you will get Karato, the legendary, for free. And then when you hit level 15, you'll get Uugo, who's an amazing support champion. In addition to that, in the first 24 hours, I'm going to suggest to you to use one of the promo codes, one of the 3 promo codes. Now, on iOS and the PC client, you do this right in game, and I'll show you how to do that here in a moment. But if you're on iOS, that tab is not available to you, and you'll have to go to the Plarium website, and the link to the website will be in the description. But if you're in Android or PC client, you just hit the little tab right here above me, and then hit promo codes, and then you're going to type one of these 3 promo codes to get the respective legendary champions. So we're going to talk about all 3 of them at length. What are their advantages? What are their disadvantages? And why you would want to select one over the other. I do have extensive experience using Alice and Monkey King. And then I will talk about Supreme 6, Supreme Galek at the end. First, let's go in and talk about Alice. Now, Alice currently is my strongest champion in the game. What I mean by strongest is she has the most power, 83,329. Out of all the champions in my roster, she has the highest power. That's largely due to that I have 6 reds on her. So when I'm talking about Alice, what they're going to get with this promo code is you're going to get what they call a 5 yellow. It's relatively easy to take her to 6, then get her to level 60, and then to get the purple stars is also relatively easy to get. Getting reds, not so much. So it's a little bit unfair to compare a 6 red Alice the Wanderer to my 1 red Sun Wukong. And I will tell you what I think once we get through what the kits do. Let's talk about what Alice kits does, what she does well, and why you'd want to consider her. Now, first things first, she has an aura. The aura is 30% attack in all battles. And I'm going to be straight up with this right here. This is an aura type that I have never used. What I'm finding is that most of the time I am using speed auras. My thing is that it's a turn-based game, and going often and going first is what primarily determines how well the match is going to go. Now, I have found there are many situations where I need accuracy, and so there's times that I need to do an accuracy aura, or there's just some matches that I need extra durability, and then I'm opting for something like HP or defense. I have not, in my personal experience, had the need or use for an attack aura. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but in the 9 months I've been playing the game, I just haven't. I've always opted for something other than attack. Now, I'm not saying that that's useless. I just haven't personally found a case use for that. Now, let's go to the passive. Whenever this champion attacks, it inflicts 3% more damage to each target for each turn remaining on all of their skill cooldowns. The bonus damage is counted individually for each target. So her primary function, well, she's got a couple different functions, is to do a lot of damage. So we'll just call her what I think she is. She's a nuker. She does have some control elements with one of her abilities, but I believe her primary function is to do a lot of damage, and she absolutely does that. Active effect resets the cooldown of one of this champion's skills each time they kill an enemy, occurs once per skill. I have found this to be very useful in waves. And what I mean by waves is, the group shows up, you delete them. The second group shows up, you delete them. The third group shows up, and then you delete them. This makes for a very fast experience with Alice because she's able to do her big damage AoE, and she will get kills because that's kind of her job. But when she gets kills, she's going to reset her cooldown so that she can immediately do it on the next wave. And one of the things that's important to have early on in Raid Shadow Legends is what they call a campaign farmer, where you take in someone like Alice and you go in with 3 pieces of food and you're trying to maximize your campaign energy, your energy for experience and silver. And the node that is best known for that is Brutal 12-3 inside of the campaign. And that's where I spent a lot of time building up experience for my champion and or using them for food. She's an excellent campaign farmer. You can use Kale, which is one of the starter champions, and we'll also talk about Sun Wukong being an excellent campaign channel. This is one of the things that you just have to do. I think there's a lot of characters can do that. Let's get into her ability. This is called the A3. Queenslayer, attack one enemy, will ignore 20% of the target's defense, which is a big deal in Raid Shadow Legend. Bypassing defense really ramps up the damage. If the initial target is killed, all attacks the enemy with the lowest HP will also ignore 20% of the target's defense. Yes, I've seen this very often. Kill 2 people. Boom, boom. Dead, dead, dead. Now, the ability that I prefer and the ability that I generally open with is going to be her A2. And I actually think this is significantly more impactful than her A3. Attack all enemies has a 75% chance of increasing the cooldowns of all enemy skills by 2 turns. Now, I am finding that to be very, very useful because that is better than ability block. She is basically increasing the cooldowns. And the thing about that is that it is not a negative effect on the opponent. So there is some artifact sets that prevent things from sticking easily. This bypasses that. Now, it does require accuracy for that to happen, but in arena, quite often, people are using an artifact called Stone Skin, and this effectively sidesteps that. Also has a 75% chance of decreasing each target's turn meter by 15%, which is also huge. If at least one of the target skills has its cooldown increased to the max, decrease their turn meter by 30% instead. So she can do a lot of damage. When she goes, she's going to mess with their ability. There's some control elements, and she's manipulating turn meter. This is all very good. Attack one enemy. So this is the basic attack. One enemy 2 times. Place an extra hit if the target has any active skills on cooldown. So it'll hit 3 times. Each hat has an 80% chance of decreasing the duration of random buff on the target by 1 turn. So that is getting rid of positive effects. She can do that 3 times. If they only have it for 1 turn, they effectively disappear. So that is a good thing. All of these things require accuracy. So when I was modding Alice, I was trying to get a reasonable amount of accuracy, which is 277, which is fine at where I'm at right now. Most importantly for me is on a damage dealer is to have the crit rate at 100%. No reason to go above 100%. And then the crit damage as high as possible. Fantastic. Now, let's talk about Sun Wukong. Now, largely Sun Wukong serves the same purpose as Alice, as being a damage dealer. However, he has one of the best abilities in the game in his passive. Before we talk about his passive, we got to talk about his aura. He has a 28% speed in arena. This is going to be very important in arena on most teams, I'm wanting to use some sort of speed aura. And then when I go into live arena, which is PvP, I really didn't have a good time until I locked Arbiter. That way I could have Sun Wukong and Arbiter. That way when they ban one of the two characters, I still have the other one as backup. Generally, they're banning Arbiter, which has a 30% speed aura, and you get Arbiter relatively early in the game by finishing the Arbiter missions. But what I'm saying is that for me to have a good time in arena, I needed to have a speed aura. And when I got into live arena, what I was finding is that almost always, not always, but generally, they were banning my Sun Wukong. And that made for a bad experience until I got Arbiter, because then they could ban one or the other and I still had a speed aura. So what I'm saying right here is Sun Wukong's aura gave me a head start in arena, which is pretty significant because I found it relatively easy to get to the point in arena where I was getting the 22% stat buff. So it's just not that hard. As long as I was playing some arena matches when I log in, playing some arena matches when I log out, it feels like there was always people that placed like a one-man team, like they were trying to drop, and I could hit 2 or 3 of them when I log in, 2 or 3 of them when I log out. And I was able to advance in the arena very quickly, which is important to get those extra stats in finishing most parts of the game and getting through most parts of the game. So that is a good thing, but that is not why Sun Wukong is one of my favorite characters. And if you must know, I can't hide this now, he is going to be my recommendation, and it's because of his passive, which is one of the bonkers things. I've been playing turn-placed squad RPG games for a decade now, and this is one of the most bonkers passives I've ever seen on any character, any game. Revives this champion with 100% HP and 100% turn meter 3 turns after they killed. He dies, you take a turn, they take a turn, you take a turn, whatever. Or he dies, you take a turn, you take a turn, you take a turn. He shows up, and if it's your turn, he's going next. If it's their turn, there he is, and they got to kill him because he does scary, scary damage. I can't tell you the number of times when I've been playing an arena where it looks like I'm going to lose. I've got one character that's holding down the show and they can't kill him. That 3 turns shows up, poof, he comes back and he one-shots the entire team. This happens all the time. I got to say, this guy gets banned all the time in live arena. If Arbiter's not being banned, I'm generally finding that they're picking Sun Wukong. Also, at some point in live arena, when you get high up in it, there are no more duplicates. And so, I mean, I'm sadly disappointed when my opponent picks Sun Wukong and I can't use mine. And I've been deleted by Sun Wukong a bunch of times. This guy's bonkers because he just pops up out of nowhere and deletes people. Now, what else does he do? Well, this is kind of interesting. Attack all enemies. Before attacking, steal all buffs from all enemies and then places a block debuff for them for 2 turns. So this is removing the positive effects from the other side, and then he steals them, right? And then he is putting a block buff so that they can't get positive effects anymore on the other side. This actually makes him somewhat useful in PvE content. Not all of it, not everywhere, but like I am getting insane value from him inside of Hydra. Hydra, it can be really annoying once they start getting positive effects, and this prevents that from happening. PvP, it's great. Absolutely great. AoE is good. Now, this is one of the more nutty abilities in Sun Wukong's kit, and when you read it, it won't sound that good, but I'll explain why it is good. Attacks one enemy will ignore 50% of the target's defense. I can't explain how important this is. Like, I feel like I've played a lot of these type of games, and the two things that kind of surprised me in Raid Shadow Legends, and some things were as expected. So I'll just put this out here. Things that were expected is speed. Speed is super important. I kind of expected that going in. What I didn't understand is how important accuracy was. And then when it comes to dealing damage, I didn't understand how important this ignoring defense was. Will attack all the remaining enemies with any surplus damage if the target is killed. This attack will also ignore 50% of the target's defense. This attack cannot be critical, which does not matter. I want to promise you. And there's some other stuff here, but for now, I kind of want to ignore this part right here. This is super useful for sure. Making people turn into sheep, super helpful and many times. That requires a very complicated conversation, which I don't want to do right now, but I just understand that sheep is important. But what is the best status effect in Raid Shadow Legends? Dead! Dead is the best status effect, and this does that. So when I'm in arena and my opponent has a Sun Wukong, but I've got it set up that I go first, I use this to target their Sun Wukong because Sun Wukong is a classic definition of glass cannon. He doesn't need a lot of health because he's constantly revived, and that's actually why I really like his kit. This will delete the Sun Wukong, and then this part kicks in and it wipes the entire team. This works in waves when coming up against waves, you know, where the teams come for the 1, 2, 3 waves. Oh my God. I've never seen damage. This number right here puts up more damage than any other character that I have in my account. I love this. So there are times where this makes sense to do first. Like if I see a weak target on the other side, if I know I can target here with that and kill that target, it's going to do monstrous damage across the board. Bonkers, actually. And so a lot of times it's, you know, softening them up with this, and then this is finishing the job. Now, the basic is super interesting. Attack one enemy has a 25% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. This chance is increased to 50% of the target has any buffs. Stun is super useful, and a basic can do a stun. Now, it's not super predictable. Yes, you can boost the chances right here, and there are times where the stun makes a lot of sense. But in the mastery tree, there is a mastery, I believe it's right here, has a 50% chance to counterattack when this champion uses 25% of their max HP or more from a single enemy skill. Can't tell you the number of times of damage coming in, him dropping below that threshold, and then him counterattacking them and stunning them. And this also leads to why I'm a big fan of Sun Wukong, because he has this revive mechanic. He doesn't need any defense. He's coming back unless they have a very specific counter to him, some sort of anti-revive mechanic or something like that. He's coming back. So when I'm modding him, I can largely ignore his HP, largely ignore his defense. I just really got to focus on him being fast, having enough accuracy to land enough stuff, and then crit rate in crit damage. Now, for some reason or another, I don't really have him modded correctly right now. For one reason or another, I've got his crit rate above 100%, which is just wasteful in some ways. You know, maybe I could use those mods on a different character. Really, there's no benefit over 100, but then I've got him at 219. I love to get this number closer to 300 someday as I get better gear. He is amazing. So, if you're watching the video so far, I think you kind of understand that I'm a huge fan of Sun Wukong, and I polled in-game players about the value of Sun Wukong, and I can attest that he is very good early game in arena and campaign farming. Now, one of the more important parts of an early game experience to excel is going to be the clan boss, the demon lord. And that's why generally when you have to pick one of your starter champions right at the game, the general recommendation is to pick Kale, because Kale can allow for a good early game experience on the clan boss. He usually gets phased out pretty quickly though, because his poisons will clog up. Well, that's a whole other story. But anyways, Sun Wukong doesn't really do that. Neither does Alice, frankly. So Alice and Sun Wukong both do well in arena. In my opinion, Sun Wukong does way better in arena. And endgame players say Sun Wukong is just one of the most effective characters in the roster. He doesn't really help that early game experience with getting through Clan Boss. He's an excellent campaign farmer, and he does very well against Hydra. And Hydra is kind of like a mid-game experience. So like, I just want to look at the reviews real quick, the in-game reviews. So we've got Alice right here. You kind of see that campaign locations, yes, arena offense, arena defense, faction wars, sure. All of this stuff, very strong damage dealer, but Sun Wukong just takes it up a notch. And a lot of people can make arguments that he's one of the extreme top tier characters in these areas, but not gonna be that helpful against Clan Boss, which is important. In fact, for me, moving as high as possible, as quickly as possible, greatly increased my rewards on a daily basis. Now, both Alice and Sun Wukong have normal affinities. Right here we've got magic and we have spirit, where void is going to be the most rare and the most beneficial affinity that you could have. So like, I just want to point that out. And that's why Supreme Galek is of high interest, and people were pretty excited when he became one of the options that you can get for free. And I think a lot of people are going to choose Supreme Galek because he's just a more rare champion, being that he is void, right? Now, I don't think he is as useful in arena at all, but he excels at more of the PvE content, and of the three characters that we've talked about so far, he's going to do the best inside against the Clan Boss. Again, he has this increase attack ally in all battles. I'm going to say I don't use that. I don't think that's great. I think actually, as far as auras go, I just have not needed to use that type of aura at all. Frankly, I don't think I've ever needed it. Like, I'm sure it's nice to have, but I've just never needed it. Laugh at danger. So this is part of his passes. Whenever this champion receives a fear, true fear, freeze, provoke, sleep, or stun, or petrification debuff, instantly removes it, then fully heals this champion and grants an extra turn. Now, this is a very useful mechanic in many places in the game. This can be useful in arena. There are a lot of characters in arena that are focused on putting out stuns or sleeps. This is super useful in Hydra because there are tons of situations where fear pops up and true fear, which is super annoying. And he basically removes it, fully heals this champion, and grants an extra turn. This makes him an insanely good Hydra champion, which is one of the core things that are important for, let's say, a mid-game player. Let's go to the next ability right here. This is Unreasoning Outburst. Attack all enemies. Has a 10% chance of inflicting critical hits. Has 75% chance of placing HP burn and block buffs, debuffs for 2 turns. So HP burn is going to be an important negative effect for taking down bosses. And so many bosses throughout the game are going to be best defeated with some sort of HP burn. HP burn allows doing a % damage towards % damage of the boss's health, which is, the bosses have high health pools. So this is very important. Block buffs, also very useful against Hydra. Decrease speed, which is a very good negative effect, but a large number, not all, but a large number of the bosses have immunity to that. But the bosses that can have this negative effect applied makes him very good. So this is a very strong PvE champion, where largely the other two, Sun Wukong and Alice, are going to be arena PvP champions. Then we've got Bloodshed Tempest. Attack 4 times at random, places a 50% increased attack buff on this champion for 3 turns before attacking. Each hit has a 10% chance of inflicting a critical hit. Each hit also has a 75% chance of instantly activating any HP burn. Debuffs from each target and decreasing the duration of those HP burn debuffs by 1 turn. Fine. Fills this champion's turn meter by 30% or more if HP burn debuffs are activated during the attack. So he's going to be excellent against bosses. Attack 1 enemy 2 times. Each hit has an extra 10% chance of inflicting a critical hit. Each hit also has a 40% chance of increasing the duration of any HP debuff on the target by 1 turn. Damage based on attack. So if your primary interest in other games that you played, like Raid Shadow Legends, is PvE content and taking down bosses, Supreme Galek is going to excel that. Of the other 2 champions, you've got Sun Wukong and Get Alice, and I'm just going to straight up Get Alice Alice in my account has a higher power number than Sun Wukong, but I use Sun Wukong way more. Between the two, they do similar functions, even though they're different, and I'm glad that I have both. I would take Sun Wukong all day over Alice. I have a strong opinion on that. That's actually how I feel. I think that a good conversation is to be had over the advantages and disadvantages of Sun Wukong versus Supreme Galek. One of the main things about Supreme Galek is that getting him out of a shard is much, much harder because he's void than it would be for Sun Wukong. They only come out of void shards, and it's very low chances. So the void characters, the void legendaries specifically, are just much more rare than the other 2 champions. So some people will say, well, you might randomly get Sun Wukong somewhere else easier than you would Supreme Galek. What I have heard from in-game players is that Sun Wukong actually is not only more useful early game, but in-game players tell me that they get more use out of Sun Wukong on a weekly basis than they do Supreme Galek. And what they said, though, as far as moving your account forward from early game to mid game, Supreme Galek is going to better facilitate that, specifically against Clan Boss and Hydra. So do what you want to do. I think all 3 of them are a good choice. For me, I am generally going to recommend Monkey King. I just have a thing for this guy. I think he is my favorite champion in my entire roster. Well, I don't know. It's funny how you say that. Like, I feel like I have attachments to so many of them. But this guy here has really carried me from day one, and I just absolutely love this guy. In fact, I hate playing against him because he's that annoying. He's that good. So, I mean, for me, I think you're making a good choice if you pick Monkey King or Supreme 6. I prefer Monkey King. So, if you haven't done so already, click the link in the description or scan the QR code, and then you're going to get Karato and Uugo. And then in the first 24 hours, enter one of these 3 codes to get one of those 3 amazing legendaries. Let me know what you think. Bye for now.